inviting me, and nice to see so many people here. Yeah, my name's Steve Barrett. I'm based in New York. I'm the editorial director of PR Week over there, and also editorial director of our sister title, Medical Marketing and Media. I've been over in New York about 9 years. Before that, I was at Haymarket over here, and I edited a title called Media Week, and back in the day, I worked on a title called Revolution, which was a digital media title back in the dot-com era. So I've kind of seen the way communications and marketing has evolved over that time and changed incredibly, and it's brilliant to get that perspective, but also from both sides of the Atlantic and a global perspective too. Before I start, I just wanted to check, has anyone been to Davos before? For the World Economic Forum, or just to go skiing? So a couple of people. So I was just going to give it was my first time there this year. I've been to the Cannes Festival of Creativity many times, and that's another gathering where you get a lot of business people, politicians, but more marketers and agency folks than chief communications officers or PR people. I think the big thing I noticed in Davos is there were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of PR people there, senior in-house professionals, people working on sustainability, lots of agency professionals too, but that really felt, to me, it almost felt like the Cannes for the chief communications officer. And I think that says something about how the function, how what you do, is respected now by the C-suite, because the Davos event is really for CEOs. They pay a lot of money to be there, about $400,000 plus, just to get that spot in the main Congress hall. And that's one of the things that you might not know about Davos is it's really two Davoses. There's the official Davos, where you have the Congress hall with all the big presentations, speeches, and side sessions. You have the official media center, which unfortunately humble PR Week was not allowed into, but we are not alone in that respect. A lot of media owners can't get accreditation. So it's a tiny little skiing village. You know, it's incredible, really, the amount of people that pack into this place each year, and also the type of people you're getting there. So there's a whole sort of fringe event along the promenade in Davos, which is like the main street. And there were 150 storefronts that get taken over by companies every year and organizations. And that is where, that's a fascinating area where you can really get a feel for the discussions about purpose, sustainability, and that was really the number one discussion. So I think that today's event is very relevant in that those discussions have bubbled up to the top. Another symbol of the way communications is much more respected now, I think, is the fact that 15 years ago, CCOs would have struggled to get a white badge, which is what you need to get into the official center. Whereas now, they are absolutely fundamental to that. And in fact, Sally Sussman, who's the Chief Communications Officer at Pfizer, led the delegation this year. And that, again, I thought was a great sign for our industry that a PR person is heading a delegation for such a big corporation like that. A few tips if you do go: it's pretty cold. I mean, I live in the States, and we've got the polar vortex coming in, apparently, for me to go back to later this week. But it's incredibly cold, snowy, and icy. They clean the roads really well, but the pavements, or sidewalks, as we call them, they don't. So there's this slippery black ice all over the place. And I don't know if this is a joke that the locals are playing on all these bigwigs coming in, but it's quite funny seeing everyone sort of slipping and sliding around. And you need to wear sensible boots and shoes. I broke my Davos duck and fell over. Luckily, didn't break a bone, slightly bruised the ego. But you do see some crazy things, like Jamie Dimon, he's the CEO of JP Morgan. I found myself next to him. He was putting on his snow grips on his boots, and I was doing the same on my boots as well, and you're bumping into people like this. I was having a coffee next to Ban Ki-moon. I don't know if you guys know Anthony Scaramucci over here. He's a slightly controversial character in the States. He had a short-term spell as the White House communications director, which came to an ignominious end after 10 days. But you get guys like Scaramucci there, or the Mooch, as he's known, interviewing the former Prime Minister of Israel, who now runs a cannabis company. And they're up in the hills doing this stuff. At the same time, you've got senior political leaders, you've got CEOs, you've got heads of non-profits, lots of politicians, all basically doing business. You know, that was the thing that really struck me, that it's not a jolly, you know, it's painted as, you know, the private jets are flying in, the helicopters are flying in. There's plenty of those. But actually, the reason people, business people, politicians like it is because they have a concentrated 3-day period where they can do as much business as they would do in 9 months elsewhere. So the CEO of a large global bank can see dozens of their customers in a short space of time. And that is, I think, what I found to be the most fundamental function of Davos. Now, why they have to go to a little ski resort in the middle of nowhere, you could argue about that, but well done to the organisers for making that the place to be. And you know, I was impressed actually by the quality and the business coming out of there. Like I said, the trust agenda is really top of mind. So it was slightly different this year in that there were 5 major political leaders missing. So President Trump wasn't there, Prime Minister May wasn't there, Justin Trudeau wasn't there this year, Macron wasn't there. They've got slightly more urgent things on their plates at the moment. And Modi from India was not there. So that made it a slightly different event this year, I think, because there was less noise around those big politicians. I think the new Brazil top guy got a lot of airspace because of that. And the number 2 person from China was there, made a very interesting speech that's worth talking about. But I think it did allow this discussion around business and around purpose to really be top of mind and top of agenda. And I think it's something we can really dig into today because it's taking the rhetoric and really making sure it matches the mission of the companies, because literally every company is now talking about this and talking about it as central to their mission. I mean, just a couple of examples. Salesforce, their motto there was blaze your trail to a better world. Cisco, the bridge between hope and possible. Then you've got banners like invest in Saudi Arabia, a future forward economy. So you've got this juxtaposition, which is quite interesting. And some of the companies are navigating both of those things. They're trying to put purpose at the center of their agenda whilst also doing business with Saudi Arabia, which you might think there could be some contradiction there. That's something we can discuss later. Accenture, trust is the ultimate currency. I think you've in this room, you all have these concepts are very familiar to you, and they make up a big part of your day-to-day work. But I think we have to be careful this just doesn't become empty words, and I think the discussions later will show us how we can make sure they're genuine and authentic and turn into things that will change the world. I mean, for example, the Cargill's one of the biggest food companies in the world. They had a big space, and their CEO was there talking about technology. Think of their challenge. We're told we'll need 50% more food by 2050. Now, you know, on one hand, that could be a business opportunity for Cargill to sell more food. But if they're going to be a company that sticks around for another 150 years, they're going to have to take a slightly longer view than that. So they were there talking about how they're doing that, how they're using technology smartly. Technology was a massive theme, and a lot of big tech companies were there. So it's how they can convince the doubters that that is their real mission, and that they're not just there to take the short-term. They're a private company, so they don't have the short-term shareholder issues that a public company does. But it was interesting to see that. One other fact, which is slightly depressing, well, it's very depressing actually, only 22% of the delegates at Davos were women, which, if you think about it, these days that's pretty pathetic. 20 years ago, that number was 17%. So it's only gone up 5% in 20 years. I think that needs to change. One of the most exciting spaces was the Female Quotient Lounge. There were some interesting speakers in there, marketers as well as PR people. So Keith Weed from Unilever was there, Mark Pritchard from P&G. Sorry to mention another holding company, Michael Roth from IPG, the CEO was there. So that was a good space, and there were some great discussions there. So I think that's a couple of other themes. There's obvious political uncertainty obviously causes problems with and a slowing in economic growth. And there's so much uncertainty around the whole world, so that was a theme that came out. One of the big themes of last year was job automation and the way workers are going to need to be reskilled over the next 20 years. And that speaks to how employees think about their companies, I think, because they're going to have to place a lot of trust in their companies to provide jobs that are sustainable moving forward. And that was a big theme. The China versus US dynamic, I don't have an answer to that one. I don't have an answer to Brexit either, but good luck with that later. I'll be flying back to the US. And new technology companies, you know, Amazon was down the street there, Google was there. They are dominating the world economy. They're certainly dominating my industry in the media, and they're playing in these spaces. So yeah, if you want to find out more about our thoughts on this, I did a blog. You can find it on prweek.com, and we did a bunch of podcast interviews with senior in-house communicators, which really gives some flavors from Davos, and will hopefully give you some further insights. Thank you very much.